Alright, for this design a chair challenge, there's 4 rules. You need to have, the chair needs to stand on its own. A person needs to be able to sit on it, and it has to have a back support. Also, this is very important. All people, whether big, small, tall, short, whatever size or ability, should be able to get into it. So you have to appropriately size the chair and make it easily accessible. Okay, so click on this Sketchup logo on the assignment. And if you need to, log in using your Google account. Then you're going to create a new model. And you'll get you'll get a person who's about 5'5", 5'5" tall. And that's just there for perspective. So leave that person there. And you'll be able to use your scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. You'll also have there's some tools over here on the side. This one here is called the Orbit tool. If you click on it, you also have a hand tool to move things around, to pan the scene around. And then there's a variety of zoom tools. We also have a selection tool here. We have an erase tool. There is a paint bucket tool to fill materials in on different surfaces. We've got a pen tool for drawing vertices. We have an arc tool, and we have a shape tool. So there's our rectangle and our circle. There's also, this one's very important, this is a push-pull tool. Now I'm going to show you, and a move tool. Move and rotate are in here. I'm going to be using the shortcuts for all of these tools, and so I will type the shortcuts into the notes, the show notes here down below the video on YouTube. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, I want to show you how to move around. So if I click H for hand, I can pan the scene side to side and up and down. If I want to actually rotate around an object, I can click O for orbit, and that will let me click and drag and rotate the whole scene. I can rotate all around an object or even under or over an object. So orbit is a useful tool for getting yourself in the right position to see what you're working on. Now you'll see the 3 axes come together here at an origin point right in the middle. Now the axes are X, the red axis is X, the green axis is Y, and the blue axis is the Z axis. In SketchUp they just call them red, blue, and green, so we'll just refer to them that way for this tutorial. We're going to draw a rectangle first, so I'm just going to use the shortcut key on the keyboard, which is R for rectangle. I'll set one point at the origin, and then I'll drag my mouse out about the size that I think the seat of the chair should be, and I'll click a second click. Now I'm going to use the push-pull tool by pressing P, and I'm going to grab this surface and just drag it up to the height that I want my chair to be. So looking at this person and thinking about them sitting down on this, that looks about to be the right height. Now I can also use the push-pull tool to widen the chair or narrow the chair. I think I'll just keep it relatively square to start with. The next thing I'm going to do, I'll use my orbit tool to position myself over the top of this, and I'll just scroll wheel in to zoom in a little. Clicking on R will get my rectangle tool back. I'm going to think about drawing a rectangle at the back of this top surface, and that is going to represent the top edge of the back of my chair. By creating that rectangle and then clicking P for push-pull, I can pull that back of the chair up and create a nice back for the person to sit on. I'm going to click O to orbit around, and so you can see the side. So it doesn't look like the most comfortable chair in the world, but for the assignment this would work. this chair is the right size, it's accessible, it stands on its own, and it has a back. So you may actually turn something like this in for the assignment. I'm going to show you a few more things though. One thing we can do is move this object. If we need to move it somewhere, we need to select it first. So I'm going to click spacebar to get the white arrow selection tool. If I click on something one time, it selects just the surface that I clicked on, or the vertices. But if I want to select the whole object, by double clicking I can select the surface and all the vertices connected to it, and by triple clicking it selects everything connected to this object. So that's actually what I wanted to do, is select all of the things. So I triple clicked, and now if I want to move it, I'll click on M for move, and I can click and drag my object along any of the axes to move it up, down, or back and forth. Now let's say I wanted to rotate this though. I would click on Q to bring up the rotation tool, and I have three options. I've got the red option, the green option, and the blue option. So I want the blue option because that's the one that sits on the floor. Excuse me. So I'm going to set the center point for rotating this object, and then I'll set a second point and start dragging around to rotate around that center point that I created. Alright, so far we've learned how to create these objects. We've learned how to push-pull, we've learned how to move and rotate. I'm going to show you how to create some legs for this object. Now one way we could do it is just rotate to the bottom using the orbit tool, and then switch to our rectangle tool, draw a rectangle. Oh, here, let me try this again. Actually, let me go back. I'm going to use this view here. Draw my rectangle, and I'm going to push-pull the leg out to make a square leg. Now, if I wanted them to be round legs, I could click C for circle, set my center point, and then drag to decide how big I want the circle, and then click P to push-pull a dowel-shaped or cylindrical shaped leg. O for orbit. I would have to make them the same size. I'm going to just undo that. The way I'm going to choose to do these, to create these legs for this project, is I'm going to grab the rectangle tool with R again. I'm going to draw a rectangle on the front of the object, on the front of the chair, to represent the space between the legs. So I'll click P to push-pull, but this time I'm going to push all the way back till it says on face or offset limit. And then when I let go, it actually pushes all the way through the object. Let me click on orbit so you can see. It goes all the way through the object. So I have two nice big legs and a very stable chair. But I can also do it here. Click on R for rectangle, create the rectangle where the space is going to be, P for push-pull and push all the way through, whoops, push all the way through, and O for orbit again so you could see. I created two legs on that side and I have one leg on this side. Now I'm going to do something a little different. I'll push-pull on this side and just pull it out and make extra space here, so I kind of have a bench seat now, so two people could sit on this. But in this area, I'm going to create a cubby hole to put in my backpack or anything else I want to hide and store out of the way. So I'll grab my rectangle tool and I will draw a space for my cubby, and I'll click P for push, and I'll push in. Also, I want there to be a little shelf in here, so I'm going to do another rectangle along the back edge here, and I will click P for pull and pull that shelf out. Let me click O for orbit, and you can see I've got that nice little shelf cubby hole system in the back, and in the front I've got a nice chair to sit on. Now, one other thing I didn't tell you, if I click on the space bar to select, I can select this back. Well, there's the surface. Here's the seat surface. Here's the back surface. But in between, there's a line, and if I can select that vertices, it will highlight blue. And if I click move, I can move just that piece. So if I move it down and forward a little bit, and let me grab the front one too. Maybe I want to move that down. I can actually slope the chair, and let me zoom out. I'm gonna space bar, grab this top line, M for move, and I'll move it back. Now you can see I've created a nice slope, a nice place to sit down, almost like a park bench. But it kind of looks a little more comfortable for the person to get in and sit down and lean back. Yet still easy to get in and out of. So I like the way this is looking. I might need to add a little bit of color though. So if I go over here to my materials panel, and if it's not already open, it may look like this. You click on this cube that has a checkerboard pattern on the side. That is your materials panel. And if I choose a material, I get a paint bucket tool that will let me fill in any of my surfaces. And I'd have to rotate around here and go back to my materials panel. Any of the surfaces that I paint, they're going to react a little bit different when the light hits them. There are some that are see-through, so if I wanted the back to be see-through, I could use that material, and it's sort of like a see-through acrylic. And you can experiment with what materials you use and how you want your object to look. One other thing you could do is there is a components library. If you click on this here, it says search 3D warehouse. Well, I could search for a chair, for instance, and bring in a chair from the library. I don't want you to do this for your assignment. However, it could be helpful to bring in a chair or another object just for perspective, because when you look at these you can see, oh yeah, my chair is shaped about like that. It's leaning in the right direction. It's about the right height. So just bringing that in for perspective could be really helpful. When I'm all done with this, I definitely need to save. So I'm going to click on the title here, and I'm going to choose my Google Drive. Now, if you already haven't done this, if you haven't rather already created a folder for all of your work in this class, I would do that as soon as possible. And then put this work in that folder. I'm going to name this chair model 8. Not 98, how about 8? And then click save. Now my model is saved. It says so right there. So to get a PNG that I could turn in, I'm going to click on these 3 lines here, go down to download, PNG, and it will bring up this print dialog box. I'm going to change this to 800 pixels wide and hit enter. And then I'll just use the orbit tool and the hand tool to move things around until I get, and I'll zoom in a little bit here, to just situate my chair in the scene so that I can see the person for perspective, and I can see the chair at a good angle. And then I just hit export as PNG, and I open the download just to check it, and I can turn that in for my assignment. And that's all.